This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore.
We are living through a scary time in America. When COVID came and there were public health measures instituted that wanted people to stay indoors, to stay apart from one another, to wear a mask when they were around one another, to try to mitigate the spread of the virus. And some freedom-loving weirdos, I use that in quotes because they weren't worried about freedom, they were worried about, what about me? They took to protest outside of Capitol buildings all across the country, storming in armed into state legislatures. This ended up being kind of a dry run for January 6th and the insurrection that took place then. This was a dry run for the inundating of state legislatures where they were trying to certify votes. It was a dry run for ultimately what was an insurrection against the United States of America, an attempted overthrow of our country. An overthrow by negating the votes of 81 million plus Americans who voted for Joe Biden and inserting Donald Trump as the president, even though he lost the election, both the popular vote, which he did the first time too, but also the electoral college vote. Violence is on the other end of the rhetoric of Republicans. Violence is what they know will take place. This is stochastic terrorism. And it's not just me who thinks so. It's not just me who's been talking about this for going on 5 years with Donald Trump's calls for violence. Phill Mudd is a counterterrorism analyst for CNN, former CIA analyst for, I believe, the Middle East and South Asia, former head of the National Security Branch of the FBI. So he's both FBI, he's been CIA and FBI. He's an expert, a well-respected individual, at least by me. And he is out there now saying that what he's witnessing right now relative to Donald Trump's house being searched for highly sensitive, top secret SCI documents. He's seen the lead up of all of the rhetoric. We've seen an attack on an FBI office in Cincinnati. We've seen the protest outside, the armed protest outside of the FBI office in Phoenix. We're seeing now a ramp up of violence. And he is drawing a direct line. I think he even uses that language. A direct line between what is happening now and the activities that happened after the insurrection or leading up to the insurrection. Watch this and gird yourself for the what is to come. What is very likely to come, because Republicans don't care about the country. They do not care about democracy. They do not care about you. They care about remaining in office and shielding Donald Trump from criminal culpability, from consequence. That's what they care about. Watch this clip from Phill Mudd on CNN.
Words matter, right?
Yeah, and I can, let me be maybe just a little more direct. I would draw a direct line based on my experience following radical groups around the world. That might seem odd, Anna, comparing what I saw with groups like Al-Qaeda to what we've seen in places like Ohio. But let me give you a quick explanation of why there is a direct parallel and why people who are speaking about violence in the FBI, including politicians, are responsible. Radicals, in the experience that I spent following them overseas and now watching them in the United States of America, require validation. Typically, if someone is getting into the radical stream, if that person maybe isn't that educated or doesn't have sophisticated views about how to view politics, they're going to look for a leader figure to validate what they feel and to tell them the use of violence is appropriate. When I watch this overseas, typically that's a youth or an older person watching a video where a preacher would tell them the use of violence is okay. Transition to the United States, we are seeing American citizens who watch politicians who tell them that government institutions are appropriate to distrust and to attack. Validation and extremism inspire radicals. That extremism comes from a leader. We are seeing that leadership emerge in political circles in the United States. It's not much more complicated than that, Anna.
So do you believe some of these Republican lawmakers are radicalizing their supporters?
Whether they know it or not, they are. You have to understand this is a numbers game. Let's say millions of people listen to you. You're telling them that the government is not to be trusted, as we heard during the Russia investigation, as we heard just in the past couple of days when political leaders say, not only should you not trust the FBI, but they planted evidence. I realize that those politicians will say they didn't intend violence, but if 10 million people listen to you and 0.1% of them are on a fringe that thinks that's a cause to violence, you cannot speak that way, because you will validate that fringe to say that person told me to go do something. And that's what we saw in Cincinnati.
Look, I admire Phill Mudd. I respect Phill Mudd, but I respectfully disagree with Phill Mudd about one point. She asked, so do you believe they're being radicalized? And he said, whether or not they know it about politicians, do they know that they're radicalizing these individuals? He said, well, whether or not they know it, they are. They know. They know because we have a track record of violent uptick in white nationalist attacks on the United States. The FBI has said, this is bad. The greatest threat relative to terrorism in the United States of America comes from within, not from without. And they know. They watched Donald Trump. They watched the MAGA bomber. They watched all of these right-wing idiots attack and kill people in the country. They watched the rhetoric that they spewed pre-January 6th lead to January 6th. They know. They know. And further, the things that I've been talking about for, at the very least, leading up to January 6th and then after, this is a three-pronged approach here of what's taking place with these radicals, these domestic terrorists who are now attacking FBI offices. They are being validated, like he said, I'll use that word, validated by political leaders. They're being validated by the news side of Fox News with people like Martha McCallum and Brett Baier. And they're being validated by the fringy conspiracy idiots like Alex Jones and Steve Bannon and Roger Stone. When all three of those things come together, and these people are hearing, oh, it must be true because I'm hearing it from elected leaders. I'm hearing it from my news source, and I'm hearing it from these alternative sources who are conspiracy theorists. It must be true. The country is being stolen from us. We must take action. And then they attack. Federal law enforcement. The Blue Lives Matter people, remember. There will be more violence at the hands of Trump supporters because that is what he intends. Because he knows that will be the outcome of his rhetoric. They know the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Lauren Boeberts and the Matt Gaetz and the Paul Gosars and the Steve Bannons and the Roger Stones. They know. They know. They're counting on it. They're betting on it. And this is why they cannot have power. This is why they must be investigated to be stopped, to face consequence for their crimes. You're going to see, there's all kinds of jokes and memes about Al-Qaeda. But this is what it is, especially when coupled with a new call for white Christian nationalism. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she can't say a sentence without getting it in there that I'm a Christian nationalist. It's a good thing. All Christians are Christian nationalists. No, they're not. Our country is in grave, grave danger. It's a hell of a way to start a Monday. What do you think? I'd love to know. Please leave me a brief voicemail. 714-576-4054. You can email me daily@dollemore.com. You can support my work if you like. Click the join button below, become a channel member. Go over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. Both those are great ways. I would very much appreciate your support. You can also follow me on social media. I am @Dollemore on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, @Dollemore. Anyway, we got a lot coming up. Keep your head on a swivel. Have somebody watching your six, all of the little catchy military adjacent phrases. They are trying to drag us into physical violent conflict. They're desperate for it. I'll see you next time. I love you guys. I appreciate it very much. Be genuine. Take care of one another.